Corbett, thank you for your reading. It was a perfect introduction as well as Paul's two original songs. It was wonderful. A great preparation for my topic today.
Yeah, I read your topic and I thought those would fit.
Yeah.
I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Thank you everyone for coming out on a day that could be a day of staying home. So it's a very different, it feels like a different world than when we met this time last week.
It does.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So in my work, I'm influenced by many people, many speakers, body of work from poets to philosophers, primarily Carl Jung, Ernest Holmes for the last 20 years or so, as well as Claresta Estes, Marion Woodbin, and Viktor Frankl. And while Viktor Frankl is known for his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, this little book is one of 20 publications that he produced. This one is Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. And it focuses on meaning, so think in terms of purpose, as well as the attendant association that comes naturally of joy. So I'm going to just give a very brief background of Viktor, just to bring us up to date as to who he was, and not so much what he did, but his thoughts, with the goal of sharing with you something that's important in my work, in my life, as I face obstacles, as I look out into my world and try and figure out what is my purpose here. So an opening story of Viktor. He was born in 1905, and I'm not going to do a whole long lineage, so don't worry, I'm not going to do a book report here, but just to understand the time of his purpose when he served us in our history of the world. He came of age in Vienna, in Austria, when psychology was reshaping how the modern mind understood itself. Who were we as a people? By his early 30s, he was already a medical doctor, a psychotherapist, and a professor at the University of Vienna. He was well established, he was well respected, he had a wonderful life. And then World War II broke out. In 1942, Viktor Frankl was arrested and deported to Auschwitz. And he remained there for 3 years, almost 3 years. And during that time, his pregnant wife was murdered. His parents and brother were also killed in the camps. Many of his friends, fellow workers at the university, his mentors, were exterminated. His manuscript of his pending book, Man's Search for Meaning, he had an original handwritten copy of it. It had not been published, and he sewed it into the lining of his coat. So he went into the camps with shoes, an outfit, a belt, and his coat, of which throughout his almost 3 years there, he bartered them all away for food. So his manuscript was lost during the camp as well. So his creative work, what he considered was his treaty for his service to the world, was destroyed. His identity as a doctor, a professor, a citizen was stripped away, and he was a man reduced to a number, serving under conditions designed to erase meaning itself. And yet, during the camps, during working with the people that he lived with, he said that there was a moment of definition. When you were first brought into the camp, you were either immediately sent to the line for extermination, or you were sent for a shower. And he was one of the people that was sent for a shower. And one of the stories in this book was a rabbi had given him information and guidance how to survive in the camp. And one of the practices was people would take shards of glass and scrape their face to look vibrant. Because if you looked vibrant, that meant that you could work. And if people thought that you could work in the camp, they wouldn't kill you. So these were part of the strategies that he lived with for 3 years. But he did notice that some people collapsed inwardly and died quickly. Others endured, not because they were stronger or more optimistic, but because they were inwardly oriented towards something that still asked something of them. Meaning did not disappear in the camps, it changed form. It became immediate. It was situational. It was fragile and essential. So think in terms of our current language of being in the moment. He became aware and in relationship with his meaning moment by moment. So meaning now takes a capital M. It's the object of life, the purpose of life, the connection to life. In April 1945, Frankl was liberated, but liberation did not mean instant freedom. He took until August of that same year for him to return to Vienna. He arrived to a city hollowed by grief, despair, absence, annihilation. Everyone he loved was gone. It was at that time when he returned to Vienna that he understood. He was told that his wife and child, new unborn child, were dead, his parents were dead, and his brother was dead. So he had lived in the camps, isolated, with hope that if there was liberation, that he would be reunited. So it's important to have this understanding of this moment. This is a choice that defines his philosophy. Unlike many survivors who left Europe to begin elsewhere, Frankl stayed. He returned to the same city, to the same university, to the same intellectual life, and began teaching again. Not because the pain was resolved, but because life was still asking something more of him. This, for Frankl, is not optimism or resignation, but a clear and deliberate yes to life, as it was, life as it was, not life as he wanted. So it's about meeting the moment, seeing clearly, being with the unbearable, and saying yes in spite of it all. Meaning is not found in ideal circumstances. Meaning is found in how we respond when life gives us no guarantees. What Frankl discovered was not how to escape suffering, but how to remain in relationship with life itself, suggesting that all of life holds meaning, that even unbearable loss does not sever us from our life force. 12 years as a medical doctor and professor at the University of Vienna, he had already developed his main ideas about life. Most of his medical practice was helping families deal with suicide. Quietly astonishing, really, how much depth of thought he had developed before he went into the camps. It was theory, but his philosophy pivoted into lived experience from his own suffering and realizing that through the suffering, staying connected to meaning, coming back, we like the phoenix rising, that is how we live our meaning. And again, think in terms of purpose. What is your purpose? His main idea, and what I would like to punctuate here, is meaning is not given. It is answered. And so what does that mean? Life does not ask, what do I expect from life? Life asks, what does life expect from me. Meaning is not abstract or philosophical, it is situational. It is meeting the moment, being, as I said, with the unbearable, as well as extracting that sense of purpose and action, and subsequently as he developed the idea of joy. Meaning, as in life, changes moment to moment. And our ability to be flexible is our ability with our ability to love, our ability to be present, and our ability for compassion. In every circumstance, even unbearable ones, there is still a question being asked of us. How will I respond? Who will I be? What attitude, action, or inner stance is required of me right now? Frankl rejected the idea that meaning is something life either gives or withholds. He observed that meaning is present in suffering, present when suffering ends, and present even in loss, because meaning does not reside in events, but in the individual's response to the events itself. So it's a practice, of responding, of responsibility. He uses the word responsibility clearly. The responsibility is not of others, the responsibility is of ourselves. And he also makes a clear distinction between ultimate meaning or ultimate purpose and the meaning of life as a whole may never be fully available. So he prefers to call concrete meaning, the meaning of this moment, is available. You do not need to solve the mystery of existence. You only need to answer this hour, this breath, this choice. So he condensed down a short theory that he observed from experience and his own phenomenology, his own lived life in the camps. And I bring it to us in our conversation today because I think it's very present today. The three steps or the three phases that he acknowledged as a philosophy in participating in life, either in the outer world or in our own inner meaning, is the first phase is shock. Reality breaks all assumptions. There is a numbness, a disbelief, and a collapse of former meanings. And the psyche enters a survival mode. So perhaps we can associate that with our current life today. And he says, shock is not a weakness, it's a protection. So it starts bringing in our reserves and allowing us to identify and allowing us to be, to learn to be comfortable, to set up this pace of breath, of observation, but also this deep connection in the moment to self. Jungians would call this a mini death. This is where the identity collapses. And this is where we realize that no rules work anymore. The next step is apathy. So we've had a fair amount of shock in our lives. This could be either through illness, through being fired through a job, through losing a relationship. Currently, I work with a lot of clients who experience environmental shock, fires, floods, dislocations. After a time of that shock, we self-regulate in a modified way, and often apathy survives. It's the next step. So number 2 of Frankl's belief is apathy. And this is where we have emotional blunting. Oh, that's not that big a deal. Yes, another shot, another murder, another collapse, yeah. You start becoming calloused There's only so much information that we can process based on the rapidity of it, based on the quickness of it, the abundance of it. So besides emotional blunting, we withdraw from hope and despair alike. So it's both sides. There's hope on one side, despair on the other, and we pull our connections in from both. So it creates a narrowing of an inner life. There's a myopic tunnel. There's something, I can take care of this. This is all I can do. I can't do this out here right now, but I can take care of this. Frankl is clear that this apathy is adaptive. It's a survival. It's not pathological. It's not here to stay with us forever. It keeps the soul from breaking. It keeps the ego from going ballistic. There's a way of managing. The ego wants to know that we can do this. There's a certain amount of control, because under control is safety. The next step through a series of lived life is liberation. So shock, apathy, liberation. Liberation is not simply physical freedom. He observed many were released from the camps, still felt emptiness, disorientation, even despair. And there's good reason for that. Freedom without the inner orientation is destabilizing. And again, the inner orientation is that moment where we have what Deepak Chopra calls the gap in between the gap. The moment in between. It's not the exhalation, it's not the inhalation. It's that moment in between. And so he says a true liberation includes a sense of presence, being aware of the presence. The presence, connection to spirit, connection to God, the life force, knowing that we have a connection regardless of what's going on around us. The inner consent to life as it is. So a sense of acceptance. Many people in AA and NA call this surrender. It creates a space of stillness. And again, Deepak Chopra, Ernest Holmes, many of our guides talk about that gap, that moment where we can make a choice. In Frankl's language, this inner consent is the moment life is no longer resisted or postponed. Okay? It is a quiet, embodied yes to being here right now, even when nothing else is changed. So he said this moment of choice releases one from being psychologically imprisoned for hope for a future. It's getting our sustenance, our nourishment from right now. And he calls this the trap of the latter, or later. When life is treated as something that will begin later, we stop living now. Hope becomes dangerous when it disconnects us from the present. Meaning does not live in when this is over, or when I am free, or when things improve. Meaning lives right now in the mess of it all. And this is where he says our responsibility kicks in. Not to what I call gaslight what's going on. When we gaslight ourselves, we end up by attracting people who gaslight us as well. Yeah. So an important part of this particular book is the responsibility, he says, is the actual doorway to meaning, to purpose, to joy. So that's really, he says, our main gig here is to have this responsibility to life. And of course, think that he spent 12 years before the camps dealing with families and suicide. So he has a large body of work why people commit suicide. He has 4 ideas as to why. And he argues the same reasons that people decide suicide are the exact same reasons people decide to live. It's the same side of the coin. Same side, different coin. I guess the edge of the coin. For Frankl, responsibility is not a moral pressure. It is existential dignity. Responsibility is Frankl's strongest formulation of saying yes to life. Yes, he says, is your form of authorship. Or in Paul's song, what was the lyrics about choosing life and making the moment? The first song.
It's not the first song?
Yeah.
I've got this life, I've got this soul, it's my choice.
It's my choice.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah. It's perfect. Thank you.
Good.
It's like, wow. So even when everything is taken, status, security, freedom, identity, in Frankl's case, his coat and his belt, his shoes, his family, one thing remains, the freedom to choose one's stance toward life, to be in life. This is not positive thinking. This is not denial. This is inner authorship. And in Jungian terms, we call this tension of the opposites. Okay, we're not compromising either side. We are accepting both sides. We are accepting the duality, knowing that we're able to be present with both. Meaning emerges when a person says, I'm still here. Life is still asking something of me. I will answer this question. This answering is what Frankl means by saying yes to life, not because life is easy or fair, but because it is still one's own. That's what we have. So really sit with this notion. We have our life. And he says, joy is not a goal, it's a byproduct. Joy cannot be chased, happiness cannot be demanded. But when a person shows up to life and accepts it as it is, knowing that we're in a constant evolutionary process, so where we are this week, we were different last week, and so forth going on. It's not about judging our abilities or our choices in the past, but showing up now. And that we accept responsibility for our choices, for our responses. And that, most importantly, we stop postponing what we think we want to do. We actually move. We actually we move from the intellect into the somatic body. We embody and we make ourselves in the world. So he says, joy is not euphoria, it's not pleasure, but a quiet, grounded joy, which equates in our current term a sense of inner alignment. So if we were to bring this inner alignment into where we are today in the science of mind, in the spiritual center, Ernest Holmes' work, Ernest Holmes approached life from a very different historical context, yet they arrive at the similar conclusion. Life is not something that happens to us. Life is something that happens through us. Where Frankl seeks meaning, Holmes speaks of life, mind, and spirit. Where Frankl speaks of responsibility, Holmes speaks of choice and conscious participation. Frankl says life asks something of us, meaning is situational, relative, transactional. Our task is to respond, and Holmes echoes this by saying life is always pressing for expression. We are not victims of circumstance, but participants in experience. Our consciousness determines how life moves through us. Holmes wrote that life responds to us as we respond to it, and how we participate in how the events are lived. Frankl says, this moment, this breath, this response is important, and the sense of alignment with it right now. So in closing, I want to bring it into current time, daytime now. Anxiety about the present and about the future, waiting for life to begin or waiting for life to be fixed, living as if meaning must arrive before engagement. The opposite is hold from Holmes and Frankl, is that you do not find meaning first and then live. You live responsibly, presently, meaning and joy will follow. Hence, also when there is purpose. I'll leave you with Frankl's 3-part vow. It says to witness, to speak honestly about suffering without sentimentizing it, to teach that freedom remains even when everything else is stripped away, to refuse bitterness. He rejected both hatred and despair as answers. So when he was in his 40s, he was released from the camps, and he lived to 97.
Wow.
Okay. He taught at Harvard, Berkeley. He started a center in Vienna, wrote 30 books, remarried again. His life was one of really embracing and meeting the moment. So before we move forward, let's pause. Not to think about what we've heard, but to notice how it has landed in the body. Notice the simple fact of being here in this room, this handful of people sharing this moment. The weight of your body supported by the chair, the rhythm of your breath, already moving without effort. Frankl reminds us that meaning is not something we solve, and Holmes reminds us that life is already moving through us. So just for a moment, allow yourself to stop reaching ahead. There is nothing you need to figure out right this moment, nothing you need to become. Notice where life feels most present in you, in your body. So I want you to go back to a time. You can close your eyes if you like and just reach that moment. Step into the memory of deep joy, of feeling connected to this life at this time. You might have been a child, could have been last week, could be right now. But in somatic work, you can embody this memory and use it as a switch. So in this moment where you're connected, I want you to just clench your fists independently. So don't clasp them together, but keep them separate and clasp them. And tension up, all the while going into that place of deep joy. And breathe into this and bring it into the body, not just into the fists. Notice where it lands. It could be in your head or your chest or your stomach, shoulders. Really embody this. Allow it to move in. And say thank you. Keep clasping. And let this feeling of joy flood your body. When I count to 5 backwards, we're going to release our hands and feel this surge of it occupy every cell. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. And feel that sense of contentment, that unity, the connection. This is a place of renewal and nourishment. And right now we need this. I'll close with a quote from Heather Cox Richardson. Authoritarians cannot rise if there are strong communities and people acting with joy. That is, you need despair and anger in order for an authoritarian to rise. Whatever those things are that you bring into the community, do them. Do them now. And do them with joy. And don't stop doing the things you love. Because don't stop doing them because you're scared. Because that actually, joy is a form of resistance.
Amen.
So with that, I ask you to live in joy. Say yes to life in spite of everything, in spite of yourself. And to always have that moment of conscious breath where you can go into the old pattern or you can choose the new. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Okay, one more time for Brenda.
Really good.
Oh, goodness. The first part was, a little dark when he's in the camps and everything, and talks about the survival mechanisms